Okay, so we're down to the shift cover. So they make several different styles. Okay, this is the newer style. Here's our shifting paw that just pulls right out. This one, there's a center detent on this guide pin here, okay, or stop pin. All right. So this is the newer style. Let me show you the older type. Okay, from the outside they look the same. So this one doesn't have the center detent stop. So the way they did it is they've got ball and spring. So there's detents on the plug, ball and spring on each side, and held in by this Mickey Mouse piece of safety wire. That once it's in the housing, you know, the housing holds it, but that piece of safety wire, it just stays on there and it holds it together until you're done assembling it. You never take it off or just leave it on there. So that's the old style. Here's another old style. Okay, same deal. Safety wire. Okay. This one's an odd one. It's got the little tang on here for the shift cover. You know, so it holds the shift cover. They also have a little bracket that does the same thing that this tang does to hold the shift cover. So there's a lot of variety. And this is a newer style with the detent right there. Okay, so we're going to take this apart. Let me move you guys around. Okay, so to disassemble this, spring just comes right out. There's a roll pin right there, okay, that holds this pin in. There's clearance behind that roll pin. We can drive it through and get this pin out and then retrieve that later. All right, so I made a little holder here. You can just put this in a vise. It's fine. I just got carried away. All right. So 3 30-second pin punch. Okay, I'm hitting the edge of that pin. I might have to get a smaller punch. Stand by. All right, that punch had a little bit of a mushroom on it. Let's try this one. Yeah, that's too tight. All right, I got to find my special punch. Whoops, forgot to turn the camera on. So I ended up making a little pin punch out of a finished nail. I got a special punch made for doing these. You think I could find it? It'll turn up as soon as we're done with this project and I'm doing the cleanup. I had it out here because I knew I was going to need it. I already pulled this out and then I realized the camera was off. These Bernard pliers are great for pulling pins like this because they have the parallel jaws. So you just, you know, grab this, gently twist and pull. And there you go. Okay. So you can see how that's set up. So that little roll pin, you know, goes right through this detent pin. Okay, now this guy should come out of there. There we go. Okay, there's our seal. All right, I'm going to clean these guys up and see what this seal looks like. I have a new one. Yeah, we'll see how it looks when we clean it up. Yeah, we'll probably end up changing it. We're ready to put our shift cover mechanism back together. So the cover is cast iron and this section is exposed to the elements, and this is going to be a saltwater application, so I went ahead and painted. I always paint these covers just to help preserve them. So I was going to change the seal, but this seal is in excellent condition. There's no nicks or cuts or anything. It's still nice and pliable, very elastic. Where if we look at a different one here, this guy, I mean, it looks okay, no cuts or anything, but it's really stiff. So it's probably, you know, temperature and time has taken its toll. So this one, if we were going to use this cover, we would replace it. In fact, in the bonus footage, I'll show how you get this seal out. The book shows it just popping it out with a screwdriver. That's not going to work. I'll show you how to get this out in the bonus footage. Basically, you got to collapse the seal to get it out of there. Okay. All right. Before we assemble this, here's our shifting paw, and I want to zoom you guys in here and show you one of the things to watch out for on these. So our shifting paw rides in here like such, okay? And when you're in neutral, the shift cone does not turn. It's stationary, okay? So when it's in the neutral position, there's extra pressure against the shifting cone to hold it in the neutral position, okay? Then when you go to shift forward or reverse, the shifting paw applies pressure, the cone makes contact with the cup and engages. Let me hold this so it'll stay engaged. There we go. And once it engages, the shifting paw has done its job. So there's only a small area here where it actually causes it to engage in gear. And then once it finishes its travel, if we look at the cover plate here, we've got some deep detents in here. And what happens is the shifting paw actually backs off slightly, reduces the pressure so that you're not putting wear on the shifting cone. So it's important that there's some shims in here that we want to get the spacing correct. The idea is you need good contact so we can get that initial engagement, okay? The release part is always there, but that initial engagement is critical. If you have too much clearance, it's not going to engage before it hits that detent and releases pressure, okay? So we're going to make sure that we check that. Just want to show you guys, keep an eye right here, and I'm going to turn this adjusting bolt. See how it moves the shifting paw in and out? Okay, so that's what we're going to be checking when we get this assembled. You want to pack your seal with grease. I like to use a waterproof grease, synthetic, but your regular marine waterproof grease will work. This is a silicone based grease here, like a vacuum grease. Yeah, I know, I think I mentioned that like 5 times already. And then we'll put some oil in there. Kind of interesting, they still leave the detents in here for the old style, so I'm assuming that these are interchangeable if you want to use a new style on an old style housing. Yeah, and I believe all the different types of shifting mechanisms, there's 3 different generations. I'm pretty sure all of them are interchangeable, so you can swap them between models and it'll still work. Okay, let's get a little oil in there.
There we go.
So our detent pin, you want to make sure it rides on this surface here. So you want to make sure that when you put your pin in, that side of the pin doesn't have any burrs. So this side is our nice clean side. You've got to grab it with pliers. Is the only way you're going to get it in there. So You just want to make sure you're not grabbing and marring the side that's going to be, operating on that surface. And then you're going to need, your punch to align that hole. Just keep an eye on it, make sure you got it lined up as you're going in. I'm going to get a soft hammer. Okay, I can see the hole right there, a little bit more. Okay, we did good. And hopefully you haven't lost the little roll pin. A little tricky to get it started. Just going to go just a hair past flush. Okay, I like that. Probably a good time to show this so you can see how this works. So there's neutral, and then as you try to shift into forward or reverse, the whole mechanism will ride up a little bit. Okay, that puts extra pressure on the shifting cone and ensures that it gets a positive force to engage it, and then once it's engaged and you finish shifting, it drops back to release the pressure. So if you've got too much clearance and the shift cone didn't engage, it's going to pop back out of gear, okay, or never go into gear. So all these settings are critical. The book recommends using a sealer like Permatex. I just use the O-ring. If your O-ring's working, that's all you need. But I do cover all the surfaces with grease. Alright, so when we do our depth check, we want to make sure that our detent pin is on the high cam right there, either there or there. We don't want to be dropped into the neutral detent or one of the forward or reverse detents. We want to be on that high cam right there, okay? And you can feel it when you're, so we can put this together and then find that spot once it's together. All right, spring goes in. Oh, I did take one washer, shim washer out, because we want to first find where we make contact, and then we're going to add one washer at a time until we no longer are rubbing or making solid contact. I'm just going to start with one because I think that's all we're going to need. All right, shifting paw goes in there. Okay, so the little notch here goes on top. And this can only go one way, it goes that way. I'm going to put a drop of oil in there. Okay, it's going in. These are blind holes, so you don't need any sealant, but you do need anti-seize. Just good and snug. They're only 1/4 bolts. Before we finish dialing in our shifting paw clearance, let's go ahead and put the top cover on. That way our bearing will be clamped in place so that we know that all our clearances are taken up. So off camera I've been looking at this. This is the cover that came with this one. It had some high spots, so mainly over here. I took this over to the lapping plate. I was lapping it a little bit. Well, this doesn't contact anything. It hangs off the back end here. Okay, so it's mainly this area here. So it's still not perfectly flat. I did, you know, lap it a little bit. I didn't want to go too much. And, you know, the cover's probably got a little bit of warpage to it. I even tried another cover that I had. This one's much flatter, and it's probably a better choice, but I know my buddy isn't going to use this cover. He's got a slope top, so he's going to end up switching it. And when he ever does use this transmission, this is going to be a spare. So we're going to go with the one that he had on there originally. All right, so the other thing is you got to make sure your bearing is seated all the way down. So I already went around with a soft hammer and just made sure that it was fully seated. We've got our original shims that we kept track of that were underneath or on top of this bearing. So we're going to put those on there, and then we're going to check our clearance. So this clearance determines the amount of clamping pressure that holds the bearing in place. Okay, so make sure we don't knock those shims off when we're setting our cover on here. And we have it with the gasket out. Okay, no gasket. We're looking, ideally, we're looking for 4 thousandths gap. So here's a 5 thousandths. You want to make sure that you're holding it down square. Okay, so the 5 goes in pretty loose there, but when I come toward the ends, a little tighter there. Still pretty loose there. Let's go to the other side. And I've already done this several times off camera just to see where we are. Okay, now I got a tight 5 over there. Let's try the 4. Okay, 4 is a little tighter than a normal 4, but not bad. And pretty tight here on the corners. Okay, it's loose over there. So we got a little bit of warpage. But I think overall we're good. I've tried experimenting with different shims, and this is the best I've been able to do. And that's what was in there originally, so we're just going to go with that. All right. So shims are still there. We've got our gasket. It's a flat rubber gasket. Just it goes on dry. We've got one bolt hole here, which is actually an oil return, so that's where that gasket goes. Lines up with that one, which is going to be, when this is on there, it's going to be this guy over here. So I'm going to put that on the top. And this is an old gasket, so I don't know if my buddy's going to put new ones on or not, but that's up to him, because he's going to have this off when he goes to use it. Oh, before we put the cover on, so I did find, I got one of these brackets, so that depending on what type of slope cover you have, sometimes they'll use this bracket to hold the cover. And then as we saw, they make this style that has an extra bolt hole there, and then they also have a different one of these. So yours may vary. Okay, so our gasket's down, lined up with that bolt hole. Our shims are there. So we're just going to carefully set this on, make sure that we don't knock anything out of alignment. All right, there we go. And we'll put our bolts in. Well, you know what? Before we do that, let's put our oil plug in while we can get to it easily. So we already cleaned this. It's got a fiber washer. Just put a little oil on the threads and the gasket. So this is the special oil return bolt. Okay. So we want to make sure it's got an O-ring on there, and he's going to have a different one. That one goes there. never sees on all these others because they are exposed somewhat to the elements. You want to check this one bolt hole with the oil return. Make sure you don't have any barnacles or anything in there, nice and clean, so that O-ring can seal. And these are only, I think it's 11 foot-pounds is the spec. And he's going to be taking it off, so there's no sense in going overboard here. Okay, back to our shifting setup. I'm going to move this to a different mount where we have a little more room. Okay, so we're checking for drag on our shifting paw. So right now we're in neutral. So we're going to spin this all the way around. And it feels really good. Nothing's dragging, okay? So now we're going to go on high cam, which is right about there. Okay, I got a little spot right there that's dragging. Yep, okay. Let's go high cam the other direction. About there. Okay, that's okay. That would be the forward direction. Okay, we go into forward. Feels good. You got to keep turning the U-joint to keep the cone engaged. Okay, let's go back to neutral. Okay, neutral. And let's try reverse. Yeah, a little bit of resistance in that same spot with it fully engaged. Yeah, right there, I can feel it. Okay, back to neutral. Okay, I'm going to put that shim back in. So the original shimming was fine, but you still got to check it. We still got to put sealer on those threads when we're satisfied. Okay, on our high cam, which is right about there. Okay, now I actually went into reverse. There we go. Okay, right here's where we had that rough spot. Feels fine. Okay, let's go all the way into reverse. All right, looks good. So I won't show you, but I'm going to take this out, put a little Permatex sealer on there and put it back in. All right, guys, this job's done. So I put the dipstick in. It's just in there finger tight. I lubed up the O-ring and so forth. I did put some grease in the steering puck bolt holes and recess, just in case they forget to do that. So yeah, we addressed the major items, the shifting cone and cups glazing issue. That's very common. In fact, it's routine maintenance. Okay, we took care of that. We replaced the weak brass thrust washer with a nice alloy steel one. That's a big improvement. We took care of the excessive end play on the vertical shaft. We got our shift. We confirmed our shifting paw clearance, and we put brand new pinion bearings in, which really wasn't needed, but we did it anyways, just to show you guys how to do it. So yeah, we're good to go. I'm going to include the shims that go under this bearing in the lower housing, and I'll probably throw a couple extra O-rings in there for them. And that's a critical setting also. If you're swapping units, if you're putting the original back on the original, then you should be good to go with just the original shims. But otherwise, you've got to check your clearances, and we'll cover that in bonus footage. But yeah, so this one's done. I'm gonna box it up and let my buddy know it's ready. Okay, yes, so I'm gonna have a bunch of bonus footage. This video is getting really long. I don't know how many parts it's gonna be once I get it edited, but you know, this is normally a 2-day job. I think I'm into this thing like 6 days now, just, you know, trying to deal with the filming and so forth. Yeah. Okay, thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one.